Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 12 of the class. This week we're going to be talking about, because we're doing a research-based argument, we're going to be talking a lot about fallacies, and then we're going to be reading a few examples of what research-based arguments might look like. What a fallacy is it's basically a false statement that actually does not make any logical sense. And so what the first assignment that you're going to do, if you look on week 12 on my portal, is that we're going to be reading Common Logical Fallacies from the Steps to Writing Well PDF, and that is page 297 to 300. And then there's going to be a Google Docs assignment that's associated with that due on Wednesday at 11:55. You will need to have that completed via Google Docs, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that and show you a little bit more about that assignment. If you go to the actual assignment, there is a live link here that you can click on, and that's going to take you to the Google Doc. And the reason that I do this as a Google document is because I find that students who are creating different types of research assignments and even maybe going on to a different educational institution or even staying here at Lake Area do need to know about these things, and it helps once you have this in your possession, because then you can actually go back to it and make sure that you aren't making any of these mistakes that we might be noting on the actual assignment. And so these are the directions for the assignment itself. You have been assigned a fallacy, and you'll see your name directly after that fallacy, so you'll need to find it below. And oh, it looks like somebody's actually in here right now currently working on it, so that's good. You may use the Steps to Writing Well PDF to help define and explain your fallacy, and then also some of these fallacies might not be listed in the Steps to Writing Well document, and so you will have to potentially use Google or other sources, and I just suggest Googling some of these fallacies, because there is a lot of really good information out there on the internet about what a fallacy is and some of those definitions, some examples. So make sure that you are looking elsewhere for that research if you're having a hard time in the book. So the first thing you'll have to do is list 3 to 4 bullet points that can help define, explain, or give background information about that fallacy. You need to use complete sentences. I found that sometimes when students don't use complete sentences, the actual information somehow gets jumbled up. So make sure you're using those complete sentences. And then after you have those bullet points, I want you to find a YouTube video that demonstrates your fallacy. So include the link to that YouTube video in a bullet point. And finally, in another 2 to 3 sentences directly below, talk about how the video demonstrates that fallacy, and you need to be very clear and concise on this. So I have given you an example, and mine is the "it doesn't follow" fallacy. And so within this fallacy, a few things in terms of background information are: the writer's conclusion is not necessarily a logical result of the facts. Just because someone knows the subject well doesn't automatically mean that he or she can communicate that subject clearly. And an example is: Professor Smith is a famous historian, so he will be a brilliant history teacher. Well, that doesn't necessarily match up. You can be a really bad teacher, in fact, even if you are a famous historian, or for example, maybe you're really good at chemistry. That doesn't mean you can necessarily relate that message to different students who might be taking a chemistry class. So the YouTube video I've included, and I'm not going to play it right now, is from The Office, if there's any Office fans here. And my explanation of this video is right here. What happens is Michael Scott in that video makes an assumption that because he's choosing a healthcare plan for his employees, that choice makes him a doctor. And if you know Michael Scott from The Office, we kind of think he's funny. But he makes this assumption, and he actually furthers his claim that his choice for these employees actually makes him this medical specialist. And it's not true. Just because he's choosing a healthcare plan does not make him a doctor, does not mean that he went to med school, does not mean that he either A, got his PhD or his MD. So he chooses that plan, but it doesn't equate him to that doctor with a medical license. So his argument and conclusion are not clear or logical, because someone who chooses a healthcare plan does not have the authority of a medical doctor like he's assuming he does. And it's funny because obviously it's supposed to be, but that is the example that I've provided for you. And if you notice, all of you have been assigned a fallacy, and so you'll have to look those up. And it looks like Rianne is currently working, so that's great. Brooke's already completed hers, so that's awesome. So just make sure that you are completing that as in this Google document. And if you're having any trouble getting into the Google document, it may be because you need to set up a Google account with your Lake Area email, and that's pretty easy. You just kind of follow the directions once you log into Google, and it should take you directly there if you haven't already once you click on the link, so be aware of that. I'm going to click out of this, and we're going to go back into the class. The other thing you need to be aware of is that we're going to be starting to think about our topics this week in a little bit further detail. So you should have all provided me with a topic proposal. Now remember, there are a few things off limits. For one, abortion; number two, gun control. And I'm going to add one more to the list this week. Gay marriage should not be in anybody's topic proposal, or should not be a topic that we discuss, because gay marriage is already legalized. So you also want to think about what's already been done and what hasn't. That comes down to basic human rights, and so there's not really an argument against gay marriage anymore because it has been legalized. So make sure that that is on your radar as well. So if we go in to the next thing that we're doing this week, you will read the PDF, The Obligation to Endure. This is a document that actually might hit home to a few of us, because it's an argument against using pesticides in the farming community. And I know that as a part of the Midwest, we are all very well, I guess, in tune with, or many of us are very in tune with what the farming community is doing, because many of us are a part of it, or our families are a part of it, myself included. So this is an argument against those pesticides. And I want you guys to pay attention as you're reading. There is, like, when the information was put out and what types of research that these individuals are making claims about, you might find that it's not as well put together as one would hope an argument would be. So make sure to be looking for different mistakes and errors that you can kind of judge from that. And then there will be a forum that will be included for that. And in this forum, just make sure that you're following the instructions. I do have some sample questions, but ultimately your responses are completely up to you. Maybe you strongly disagree with this and you found that the research is dated, or maybe you strongly agree because you've had I know one of the instructors here at Lake Area had a very close encounter with this in his hometown because the water supply was so contaminated and many people from his hometown had passed away. So just depending on kind of your ideas, maybe do you agree or disagree with the thesis, etc. So start thinking about what those, I guess, what you're thinking as you're reading, and comment on those things, as well as responding to a peer. 100 words minimum, 50 words for the initial post, and 50 words for the peer response. Additionally, this is not on the schedule, on the schedule that I sent out to you, but I want you to watch Copyright Fair Use and Plagiarism, the YouTube video, and read this overview and contradictions and is it plagiarism yet. If you click on that, I have included all of those links so you can access those directly. Make sure you're watching those, because I have noticed there has been some plagiarism issues within the class based on not knowing how to cite properly and blatant copying and pasting, which is a big problem. So make sure it's not you. Also, you're going to read the Guardian article. If you click on this, you will find the link included from the Guardian about how gendered toys may be harming childhood development, or maybe they're not, and then you'll have a forum on that. Once again, think about what your opinions are. Think about the research that the article includes. Think about the dates in which that research, was put out, if you can find it, and make an argument yourself. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is this right? Is it wrong? Do you have personal experiences with this? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I'd love to hear what you have to say on that topic. You'll also be reading Library Sheet 1, Library Sheet 2, and a student example of the annotated bibliography. All of those are directly listed under the assignment here. Library Sheet 1 is just the passwords to access those databases off campus. Library Sheet 2 is how to search for resources under EBSCOhost. And then the student example of the annotated bibliography is a student example. So be aware that there are some mistakes, but it does give you a pretty good overview of how you can go about creating your own annotated bibliography. It's a pretty good example. But there are, of course, some mistakes. And then also choosing and evaluating your sources and preparing an annotated bibliography. This is in steps to writing well. It will be helpful for you when you're reading what Sketch 2 entails, since you are going to be preparing your own annotated bibliography this week. Make sure that you are looking at that actual assignment, which is under resources, if you see the instructions here. And if we look under week 12, we have Sketch 2 for the RBA, the annotated bibliography. What an annotated bibliography is, if you open it up here, and I'm going to for you, is it's a way for us to find the sources that we need to and kind of create some little notes about them so we know exactly what those sources are saying. And there are some steps to this, so I will have you type that works cited entry in MLA 8th edition and then write 4 to 5 sentences about the source. So summarize it, determine the thesis of the article, maybe include some source information with parenthetical citations. If you find a quote that you think would be really beneficial to use in your paper, include it. Throw some quotation marks around it, throw a parenthetical citation around it so you can just copy and paste it later on into your paper. And then write one sentence that describes exactly how you're going to apply this information to your argument. This is a really good way to kind of sift out some of the bad information that you might find. If you can't figure out a way to apply it to your argument, it probably isn't going to work, and you're probably going to need to find another source. So make sure that that's turned into turnitin.com. And this is going to be around 250 to 350 words. It may be more. Annotated bibliographies tend to be a little bit longer, so if you do go over, you won't be docked. I'm really looking for content in terms of this assignment, so make sure that you are aware of that. And your annotated bibliography does need to include 6 scholarly sources, so there should be 6 different entries, and make sure they are alphabetized, as that's a part of a works cited entry. If you have any questions for me, feel free to let me know. I'm going to be working on your topic proposals this week and taking a look at them to make sure that they all look sound, and then we're going to, obviously get into those fallacies to make sure we're not making some of those mistakes. And yeah, I really look forward to reading those topic proposals, and hopefully you all have a wonderful week. Thanks so much for watching, and email me with any questions you may have. Thanks a lot.